earth to God. Come in, God. I know you're there, hearing our prayers wherever you are. We need you now to send your love down. Take away the pain in your holy name. We ask this now. We need your light, we need your love to heal the world you made. And save us now in our darkest hour with your amazing grace. Earth to God. We're holding on, but not for long. Can you pull us all close to the Holy Ghost and keep us strong? We need your light, we need your love to heal the world you made. And save us now in our darkest hour with your amazing grace. Earth to God.
Well, welcome everybody. This is the new Sovereign Redneck Renegade Radio, and we have a special treat for you guys tonight. I want to say I miss everybody. I know it's been a little time since I've been live here, but nonetheless, thank you so very much for your prayers. Thank you for your kind words and your love. I really have appreciated it. I would be remiss to say that all of our lives have changed over this last year. Some of us, our lives changed several times throughout this last year, okay? And I've had some significant events take place, many of which that took place about 2.5 months ago, which kind of led me down some other paths, if you will. And I've been somewhat active on my Telegram channel and have kind of taken a step back from doing these live shows here with you guys. And because I needed to rethink about my message going forward. And that message is this. I believe that we are in a state where right now, most of you are awake and you're wanting to take that next step, that next level of your patriotism, if you will, right? But also our sovereignty, okay? And for 2 months now, I have been agonizing over who should I align myself with. You have some great individuals out there in this movement, if you will, like they're part of the restoration plan. You have David Strait and his cohort, Bobby Lawrence. You have Anna Von Wright, I believe is her name. But they have great messages. They have great platforms. They have lots of great information. But the individuals I'm going to introduce you guys to tonight are ones that actually won my heart. because I've always tried to approach my message through the Spirit. I've tried to abide my teachings through the Spirit. And so the individuals I'm going to introduce you tonight are of the same mindset, all right? I believe in order for us to win this battle that we're engaged in, I've always maintained this is a holy war. This has been a holy war for millennia. And in order for us to win this holy war, we have to what? Well, we have to engage in warfare in the spiritual way. We cannot approach this battle, if you will, the old way of doing business. It doesn't work. It's proven that it doesn't work. So now we have to rethink our strategies on how we're going to go about taking back our sovereignty as a nation and as its people itself. And as I've always said, God gave us our sovereignty when they gave birth to our spirit, our souls. Our sovereignties are permanent. They don't ever leave us. But when we're born into this world, we still have to live in this world, even though we don't have to be of the world, right? That being said, it's the same thing with our sovereignty. So I'm going to introduce you to some friends that I think you guys are going to find very profound. There's a great organization called Americans in Action, and it's a great team. The leader of this team, his name is Christo Hartman, and they have been very successful in helping individuals reclaim their properties, reclaim their rights, teaching and educating at, I want to say, the quantum level, which is this new level, because this is part of the shifting that I've gone on in my life, is we are doing a quantum leap into our lives. And we're taking these quantum leaps into our mode of the way we think, the way we operate, the way we conduct our day-to-day affairs. This is the world that's changing. This is the world that's ascending. We're shifting out of the third dimension mindset, and we're ascending into the fifth dimension Christ consciousness mindset. It's a collective effort. We're all in this together, and we are the plan. I've maintained that month after month after month. We are the plan. That has never changed. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in their team here. So we have Jason, we have Christo, and we have Ananda, and then we have Brother Cohen here. All right. So make sure you guys are unmuted. Ananda, you want to unmute yourself there, dear. Yeah,
Hey, unmute. Unmute.
Unmute yourself, Ananda. See, I can't unmute her. She has to unmute herself. There you go.
I am now. I'm unmuted.
Hi. Great, great, great. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome. This is the new Sovereign Redneck Renegade Radio. All right. I'm so grateful that you guys have decided to join us tonight. As I said, I've been gone for 2.5 months. Yeah. Well, I've been gone for 2.5 months. You're welcome. And I know there's going to be some lag here, and I understand that. So what I'd like to do is you guys, Cohen, as you guys can see down here, Cohen is a brother. He lives out of New Hampshire, and Cohen has served our nation honorably, very much so in our armed forces. And Cohen is of the same mindset as we are. We need to approach this in a spiritual way, this battle that we're engaging in. We can't do it the old way. We have to do it the new way, the spiritual way. And this is the one reason why, Christo, you really touched my heart when I spoke to you last week, because as much as I've watched David Straight and their platforms, I felt that there was something still missing there that is not quite being conveyed to our listeners. Let's bring Ananda in again. There you go. So what I'd like to do is do this. Christo, you, Jason, and Ananda, you guys, please introduce yourselves to our viewers and let them know, what you guys are doing, just a little bit of background about who you guys are and what you're trying to do, and kind of what maybe, I don't want to say separates you, but makes you a little bit more special or different in the way you're approaching our sovereignty and the way we think about our sovereignty. Would you mind doing that, please?
Well, thank you so much, ML, for the introduction and the kind words. Appreciate that. I am Christo Hartman. We started Americans in Action about 3 years ago. And we, of course, like everyone, is going through various growth periods and this and that. We were very strong on affidavits in the very beginning and got a lot of great results. And for the people that did the affidavits, Declaration of Truth, in the exact meticulous way, got results. A couple of our clients now are actually getting compensation offers from the bosses and the CEOs that were making them take a jab and then firing them. So they're very powerful affidavits. And then we have progressed on to something that we call trust law. And trust law is entering into the kingdom of heaven. It is going into the private. Any of this work, we have a saying, God oversees and is above form. Form is important, but without God, it's empty and no good. It's just not going to work. So this is the reason that we feel America and the globe is in this situation, because we feel that and seen that humanity is actually forsaken God. And now they are just realizing that, humanity, and are a certain number of us are realizing that, and we're becoming active and bringing God back into our life in such a way of how it should have been all along. And so a lot of people say, what do you mean? I go to church and I pray and I do this. Yeah, okay. But in everything you do, are you just having God when you pray or in church? It's got to be the entire life. Everything, gardening, God, making dinner, God, And so in that, all the forms we do, we align it with proper prayer. And it is amazing because this trust law so far has been infallible. We're like something like 13 for 13 in regards to getting results that we want. And the results is, of course, if there's any fraud in any charges, we want them dismissed or exonerated. And that's what's happening. We can go into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to give you an idea. It's a progression. And one other thought before Ananda or Jason comes on, and is that it's very important to realize we go to events, we read the Bible, we do all of this theory, but then we go home and do nothing, and it's not going to make it. You think the cabal, the dark, is doing nothing? No, they're in action every day and have been for the last 5,000 years. You know what I mean? So with that, we have to retrain ourselves and get into the consciousness of, yes, receive information. Yes, receive wisdom that you can apply in your life. But then everyone is responsible. When you gain wisdom, not only do you apply it to yourself and your family, but you share the wisdom with other people. And also that means sharing it with, guess who? The sheriffs, the commissioners, the governors, the bar attorneys. These are all folks. A lot of good folks are in those positions, but they're caught between a rock and a hard place. So education, we always approach it with education and give them the benefit of the doubt. Once they get the education, if they don't do anything, well, they're announcing where they stand, right? So where you stand and who you are is the most important things in the work that we do. And we're going to show you tonight and maybe tomorrow where we're going to give you tools to apply it in your life and begin to disseminate the information on what the sheriff should do, the commissioner should do. And we all know that, but now we're going to give you exact tools in that. In addition to that, it's very, very important to have realization that it's a new lifestyle. We can't go back to the old. It's just not going to work. A part of the old is we've forsaken God. So now it's a whole new ball game. God is in every breath that we take and everything that we do. That's the essential part that gives it life, that gives it the purity of the essence of unconditional love. And in that, it's miraculous. I could talk on forever, but I want to share. I want to, by the way, Owen, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Great meeting you, Christo. This is awesome.
You,
I'm loving it.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you, Christo. Thank you, ML. Thank you, Cohen. Yeah, it's just been a wild ride because the most beautiful thing about this whole thing is when we enter into the kingdom of heaven, we see that the law derives from the kingdom of heaven. And everything that is a reflection of that is what the world has been living in. So admiralty law, maritime law, Roman law, it's a mirror image of the purity of God's law. And one of the most beautiful things that people are realizing as they're trying to exit Babylon, which is Roman law, maritime law, admiralty law, and enter into the kingdom of heaven and realign to their sovereignty, by definition, they are realigning to their connection with God. And when you look at law, there is operations of law. And when there's a supreme law and an inferior law, by definition of operation of law, the supreme law has to override. So when you come in as a sovereign being and remembering who you truly are, a child of God, a creation in the image of God, that by definition means you are no longer the creation of who they think you are, which we'll get into your straw man, what people call it, and other things of that nature. That's all a manufactured legal fiction mirroring the truth of God. And so when you return back to sovereignty, by definition, you're connecting to yourself with your creator and living in the supreme law, which by definition, the maritime, Roman, admiralty law will have to yield. And when you're coming from that point of view, you're coming like with your flag behind you in peace. You're coming as a friend of the court. You're coming in honor, and you're coming in unconditional love and forgiveness and fortitude and honor. And you're approaching things with a ministerial point of view as opposed to a war point of view. So you have to see and realize that Roman law is foundation is war. And the only way that they can have any subjugation over you, meaning supremacy over you, is if they fight you. And their whole system is designed for fight. And by the way, it's a rigged system. So if you decide to fight it, you're going to lose. But if you come from that higher jurisdiction, if you come from God's point of view, then they'll yield. There's no fight. And then the path shows itself to you. And it's a beautiful thing because everything is serendipitous to what we're doing with the law and to your own awakening, as you mentioned, ML. And so we are experiencing a spiritual revolution or evolution, return back to source and turn back to sovereignty and the love that we all came from.
And you know what? We're amazed. We're amazed at how we do things in the political realm, in the court system, and how it goes back to our spiritual path with Christ consciousness. It is amazing. It's the same thing. Oh my goodness gracious. It's the same thing. And when you apply that spirit of love of God within the forms, within the administrative process, you're victorious because they cannot deny it. Even the criminals cannot deny it. It's pretty phenomenal. Now, we're going to share with you later on tonight with some, let's just say, fixed opinions that we have all had, and we have to kiss those goodbye. That's why people of patriots and what have you that have stood up in court have lost all the time because they go in with the wrong consciousness and they think that the forms is going to get it done, and it won't. And so we can go into the bar courts and the bar attorneys and everything else, but just realize it's a whole new ballgame. It's a whole different point of view. And we, all of us, have had fixed opinions often, and the fixed opinions that were there now have to go bye-byes. Isn't that interesting? We have to be
amazing.
Change. Yeah, exactly.
And hey, ML, Ananda's computer is having difficulties. She happens to be in the same location as me, so she's going to jump on to share my screen, and she'll myself to just to let you know. Okay.
Sounds good. Go right ahead.
Awesome.
So, hey, are you there?
Hey.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Because Jason and myself have introduced, and the three of us as Americans in Action, in all respect to Cohen, we love meeting him and everything, but he's in New Hampshire, but the three of us are the Americans in Action. Just want you to know. He's an American in Action anyhow, but you know. Okay, go ahead, A.
Well, we'll bring Cohen into this in just a second after we hear from your teammate there as well, because Cohen is actually going down this path, which you were just talking about with the county sheriffs. You know, my background is, I was a former deputy sheriff myself, and I have a little bit of experience in running with the sheriff's campaign, but on a constitutional platform. And when we did that, I got to see all the ugliness from the rhinos, which were the establishment that ran the county at that time. And I got to see all the nasty stuff that came out. We were the outsiders, and we were gaining recognition because Sheriff Richard Mack was endorsing us. We were starting to get attention nationally because we were taking on the establishment, because at that time I lived in Idaho, and Idaho was the most conservative state in the union. Not so much probably anymore now that a lot of Californians have moved there. They brought their liberal politics with them, but nonetheless, I've seen the ugliness because I've also served at the state level of the Republican National Executive Board in the state of Idaho, where we would vet out candidates who wanted to run on a congressional seat, whether it's state or national level. I worked myself up into that position, and that's why on my moniker I call myself a recovering Republican, because I saw all the nasty stuff, because those guys were just as bad as the liberals. They were just better at hiding it.
Exactly right. See, you got to realize that everyone, Republicans and Democrats and everyone, is involved in the corporation in the foreign state, and they won't leave it.
Mhm.
We keep on talking to bar attorneys that are supposedly constitutional attorneys. That doesn't exist, because as a matter of fact, for a bar attorney to use common law, he will get disbarred, so he can't use it. And so with that, we speak about, once the bar attorney learns of the corruption and realizes what's going on, they should do their own YouTube and take the bar card and tear it in half and say, "Hi, I am now an assistant of counsel, a true constitutional lawyer, and I'm here to assist you." Another thing that we're used to is giving our power away. We have to realize that not only the court systems, but the medicine, the AMA, they're all corrupted and infiltrated with fake science. And that's one of the problems that we're having. So we have fake science, we have fake court system, fake government. And so with that realization, it's so infiltrated, we're not going to change it. We're just not. So what do? We return home. In the private, it's called. We return home to the kingdom of heaven, the truth of what it is. And from that platform, that's where you stand. And the main focus that I wanted to point out here is we're used to hiring a bar attorney. When we do that, we give away our sovereignty. And when you do that, one I just wanted to bring up real quick, it takes 3 signatures in court to imprison you or send you to jail. The judge, the prosecutor, and guess what? Your own bar
and
attorney.
your attorney.
And he betrays you and signs, and you go to prison. That's what happens. If he doesn't do that, they cannot take you to jail or go to prison. And so that's one thing there. And with the medicine part of it, it's all fake science to make us sicker. Look at our food and what's in our food and our air and our water and fluoride and all kinds of things for years and years and years to make us sicker. So we have to realize we have to reestablish what it should have been all along, the kingdom of heaven, and you stand there. And whenever another point is, we don't go to court any longer. We don't go physically in that jurisdiction. We handle everything administratively, and it's powerful and it works. And so with that, you no longer give your sovereignty away to a stranger. You stand yourself. And there's some people that still have a bit of fight in them. And so they want to go to court in person, and they've been successful as well. A few of them made mistakes, but administratively is really powerful, and you just don't make a mistake. It's it's an amazing experience. So I'm kind of giving you a little bit of seeds in order to show, explain of how and why and what we're doing here. It's amazing. Ananda, would you please?
Yes, please.
Hi, ML, great to see you. Cohen, great to meet you. Christo, Jay, this is exciting. I love that you were talking about standing, and when we help people to develop their standing, because standing isn't automatic. Standing is something that you develop as you go. And when we talk about standing, what we mean is standing in your knowing. When we are standing in our knowing, we are one with our Creator. And so we are unstoppable. We are bulletproof. And so we help people to develop their standing. Once you have your connection with Source, your relationship with the Creator, your first contract, the covenant, the first trust, right? Mm-hmm. Once you have that relationship developed, then and only then would I recommend doing the administrative processes, because a lot of people, the patriots, God love them, I love them, they still want to fight for their rights. And I'm thinking, you got to lay down your sword, because when we keep that fight going, the beat goes on. We will never see peace on earth, ever. So the first aspect, of course, is the internal, the spiritual, the contemplative, the praying and receiving whatever wisdom that you hear from Creator. That's your relationship with God. And then from that, as you're studying, applying divine right action, doing your due diligence, your duty-bound responsibility, right? Because the founding fathers were tapped in, and you're applying yourself in that way, learning all of the tools, and then picking and choosing. And only once you have that certainty within your being do we recommend that you should ever take a step forward. We don't want you to take our word for it. We want to share information so that you can empower yourself. People come to us and they want to hire us for our expertise, which we appreciate, but that's not what we're here for. We don't act like attorneys. We don't speak on your behalf. We help you to develop your own voice, and we support you. We got your back. You know what I mean? We're assistants of counsel. So we give counsel.
And all that note, everything we do is for educational purposes and for your entertainment purposes only, and we're here to guide.
And so you can find assistance of counsel in the 6th Amendment, by the way. So if you want to look that up, and you should vet everything that we speak of, okay? It's because of what Ananda was saying, it has to rest here. It has to be within you, your being, in order for it to be authentic and effective. I want to say that we have another member, and her name is Maddie, and Maddie is dealing with some other things right now, but she may pop on every now and then. So I just wanted you to know that Maddie is alive and well. Okay, so
well, let's bring Cohen into this.
Yeah,
I want to introduce Cohen to you guys. Because
you remind me of Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah, well, Cohen and I became...
Thank you.
Well, Cohen and I became brothers because on Telegram, he's a supporter of my channels but he adds a lot of and contributes a lot of thought and knowledge into my channels when I hold my chats on Telegram as well. And he's very insightful. And he and I are of the same mindset. He and I have had a couple pretty in-depth conversations, and we've had some very similar spiritual experiences, parting the veil, and having revelations, personal revelations from the heavenlies, and things of that nature. So we have this common bond, heavenly bond, if you will. And so I wanted to bring Cohen into this because Cohen is kind of going through the process you guys are talking about right now himself. He's becoming proactive in the area where he lives because he realizes if he's going to take down the power structure, well, he's got to start from the county sheriff's point of view itself. So Cohen, brother, introduce yourself and tell him a little bit about your background as well.
Sure. Thank you very much, ML. And I'm really grateful to have met you. I mean, this has been such a great, experience going through this awakening process as we're all going into this new kingdom age. And to be doing this with you and then with these dynamic people here, Americans in Action, it's just it's humbling. My story, my background, I served in the United States Air Force. About 20 years ago, I was, praying and seeking life direction. And, I heard the voice of the Lord very audibly then, and he told me to go in the Air Force. And, I joined, and I didn't really know where I was going in the Air Force. I just joined out of sheer obedience. When you were leaning on Papa, you do crazy things like that. And when I got in there, I got a open door to go into survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And I learned how to survive, the tough times of life. And we really directed our training towards high risk of isolation warfighters if they were to be, isolated behind enemy lines, and worst case scenario, be in captivity. And I did not realize how applicable that environment and learning all the ins and outs of exploitation in the captivity environment was be relevant to the day that we're living in right now. But we're definitely in a captivity environment, and the psychological warfare that we would study from history that happened in places like these is exactly what's going on in our current day. And really one of the barriers to our liberty, it's not necessarily the control systems that are in place, but it's how it's affected us mentally, and how we've been just content with doing what we're told and living at the at the wishes of this corrupt few. So that's where I've gotten on board in this direction. This is where I'm really pushing, and I really feel a strong resonation with this idea of becoming sovereign, first in the mind and spirit, and being able to stand in your own voice. Ananda, I really resonated with what you were saying, how it really has to come from that inner knowing and that inner voice, and I really appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to what you guys are going to share. I'm going to get out of the way because right now tonight I'm a student.
We all are, brother.
That's the way we feel too. We're forever students. That's exactly right. You want to stay open all the time and never go into a thing called know best, and being open. That's how we continue to grow. It's so beautiful on that. I think the first thing we should go after, if you don't mind, is our the status and what people should do in that. A lot of people and a lot of his audience already are and already know that, but let's just go over and we'll go down the road, and then we'll move into the trust law so that they understand exactly how and what that works, how that works. Yeah. Now, do you want to start that process? What is it to actually redo your status?
Thanks, Christo. So correcting your status, we teach our most popular workshop right now, hands down, is the Correcting Your Status Masterclass. And what that means to correct your status is that if you don't declare and decree what your status is, the corporate government will assume what your status is. Mm-hmm. And so when we declare ourselves and decree, using a repudiation process, that I am a free, living, breathing child of God, living woman, I'm basically alerting the corporate government to the facts of the matter. And a lot of people ask us, well, why the heck would I want to correct my status when I already am a blood-born American? I'm already a true American. This is ridiculous to go and alert the corporate government to the facts of the matter. But the reason why we do it is because they have assumed us to be the all caps name from the birth certificate swindle, where your family name was converted into the all caps name. I know I'm working with a very educated group here. You already know this, but some of the viewers might not know. So I want to say.
That's okay. Please do.
Yeah, and I'm going to borrow one of Jason's terms. Why do they put it in all capital letters? Because they're going to capitalize on you. So I know, right? Good one, Jay. So, I know, right? It just makes perfect sense.
Everything becomes very simple when you start realizing what's happening. Common law is very simple. God's law is very simple. It's for children 3 to 5 years old to comprehend it. So when you put it in those terms, you start realizing everything that they're doing is really quite psychotic, and just bring it back to the simplicity.
Yeah. It's all the world of make-believe. So they make believe that you're a corporation and not a living being. And because they've assumed that about you, if you don't correct it and get it on a court of record, they'll keep on assuming it about you. And therefore, false arrest, harassment from OSHA, unlawful fines, getting you to believe that you need a license to do everyday things like make a living,
travel
right, as a free American. So it basically goes against the American way. The corporate way is not the American way. So we're here to set the record straight. And you do that by a process called correcting your status. So my status, I'm an American state national. And so what that means is I have limited diplomatic immunity. So that is reflected, and we take people through the repudiation process all the way through getting your passport, where your status will be reflected on your passport. Your passport won't look any different, but they will recognize it at the Department of State level. And what that means is do not detain, do not interrogate, 50 state concealed carry. I'm a free American.
And one thing to add to that, there's a thing called the law of assumption. And what the law of assumption is, defined loosely, is that which is assumed without being rebutted is the reality. So I'll say that again. Something that truth. Yeah, it stands as truth. So if something's assumed and it's not rebutted, it stands as truth. What they're assuming you to be is that legal fiction that they created, which we might delve more into detail with that on this call. But there's the two names. I'll just reiterate it. There's your all caps name, and then there's who you truly are, which is your upper lowercase, your first, and your, for lack of better language in this call, we're just going to use words that we're all familiar with, for your first, middle, and then your lineage, which is your last name. So they assume you to be the all caps name, that a law of assumption. It is your job as a sovereign being to alert them that that assumption is not true. And as a result of you rebutting their assumption, you've now changed their reality. In other words, you brought forth the higher truth, and therefore their fiction will fall away. And you're now, through that repudiation process, through administrative remedies that we do and other means that we do, are alerting to them, hey, that assumption that you think I'm that all caps name that you created is not true, because who I truly am is a God creation. And there's a maximum of law that says that which creates controls. That which creates controls. So when the corporation created your all caps name, they control it, but only by your acquiescence, only by your subjugation. In other words, you're subject to it. Unless you come forth and say, hey, I do not consent in that, and I'm going to inform you that this is who I truly am. My creator, and therefore who controls me, is God, and I'm a child of that. So that's the only authority that exists. And when you present that through the repudiation process and other administrative processes that we help people learn and teach, now you've debunked their whole assumption and therefore changed the reality to your reality, and they have to acquiesce to you.
Yeah.
So what that means is that anything that you buy, your house, your car, your refrigerator, any bill that you have, if you look at it, you'll see all caps name. So in reality, everything that you do in your life, you, the living, breathing woman, man, do not own anything. They own your business. They own your property. They own your children. And so that's why a lot of people lose in court, because they think that they own it and they go, I own this. And once a person goes into court that way, they consider you to be stupid and incompetent. And guess what? We are, or let's say we have been. So to straighten the record out, if you do not debunk it, like with an affidavit declaration of truth called the repudiation, then you remain in their corporate prison. And when you try to get any justice, you're not going to get it, because it's all set up with statutory ordinance, laws or bylaws of the corporation. And with that, unless you know what's going on, and guess what? They created a whole other language called legalese. So we have normal words like person, citizen, we think we know the meaning of, completely different. And we have to understand that. As a matter of fact, we have a dictionary called the Dictionary That Will Save Your Life that has over 300 legalese terms on it, because we say it'll save your life, because if you don't know those terms and you're dealing with court cases, you will get railroaded for a predetermined outcome, which is you in prison or paying a huge amount of fines. And so with that, there's another ingredient in this, and you must study and realize all this. And that ingredient is when your mom signed the birth certificate and they created a trust in your all caps name. In other words, they created that birth certificate, which is really a license to do commerce, associated and along with the social security number, the QSIP number. And so with that, in doing that, they are actually making millions of dollars with your all caps name. And so we'll go into that a little bit later. But in that, we have to realize.
Hey, Christo, let me add something in there. I'm sorry. Let me add something to what you were just talking about. So Debbie, which you guys know, she showed me, and so I registered at the website and put in my number. And I'm not kidding you, there were hundreds of thousands of transactions done off of my social security, my birthing number. There was like over 100 pages with hundreds of thousands of transactions. And it was very detailed. It told me where it took place and how much and what. I mean, it was very, very detailed. I was just like, I felt like that much smaller, knowing that I've had hundreds of millions of dollars traded off of me.
Exactly. As a matter of fact,
it's crazy.
Each one of us is worth at least $250 million, and sometimes it goes into billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Hey, it is a great concept. When you're born, you create a trust and you trade it, and the only fraud is they keep all the money and they don't tell you what's going on. So we're uncovering the truth and exposing it, because guess what? There are laws with God's law. Trust law has rules that you have to follow meticulously. And when you do that, they cannot deny you, because if they do, it would be considered an evil against the trust.
Like a high crime.
Like a breach of trust.
Yeah, it's the highest crime. Yeah,
that, high crime. Their backs are against the wall. It's amazing. And we remain in honor, and we remain a friend of the court. Did you know that in Title 50, in the 40s, they actually declared that the American person, pardon the expression, is an enemy of the state. So they consider us to be an enemy of the state. There's that war thing. And if you're not aware of that and debunk that, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And they have all the guns. They have all the setup in order to railroad you. That's why it's important. Do you know, if you don't know this information and you don't debunk it, like Jason and Nanda said, that they consider that you have volunteered to be in prison and everything they're doing is okay. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Are you a volunteer? Ask yourself that question.
Universal law.
That question, and then you will see the importance of becoming into the private, living into the private. That means that you don't need a license to do business. You don't need to give the private corporation called the IRS money. It's fraudulent. But if you're in their corporation, it's more challenging to handle that as opposed to a free living, breathing person. You want to add to that, folks?
Yeah. Gosh, all of the above. So it's just right out of the Marxist playbook, accuse others of that, which you're doing. So when they declare us to be enemies of the state, they're alerting us to the facts of the matter of what they are. So with that, a really good thing to disclose always when you're out in the world, whether you're an American state national or you're just learning about this stuff, God forbid you ever get dragged in shackles, just remember these two things. If you have to stand in front of a magistrate or a judge and you don't have an affidavit and you don't have assistance of counsel, remember this: I'm not an enemy of the state, and my body is not to be used as surety. So your body is not to be used for collateral for their financial transactions. And if you go back to Black's Law, I think 6 and earlier, and you look up the word judge, it says, see banker, see postmaster, right? And you look up court, it literally says, see bank. They're banks. And they look at us. So when you looked up, when you looked up your numbers or whatever you were doing on the website, they look at us as livestock. And that's literally why they call it the stock market. They are trafficking we the people, and people all over the world. This is not just happening in America. So when you correct your status on the record, from our research, we found it is recognized by the UN. So God forbid health camps come down the road and you have your papers in order because you know who you are. They recognize that. They recognize Sovereign. So there's more and more of us coming out, standing strong. And we're encouraging anyone who's learning this stuff to resist the urge to fight, because they're picking a fight with us. I see it as this giant collective narcissist. They are picking a fight with us. And it's really hard to not participate when somebody's picked a fight with you and remain standing. So, do your processes, and it's okay to stand for your rights. And there's laws that protect us, even in their admiralty law world. Their statutes and codes, they even have laws that protect those rights. So,
yeah, and in addition to all that, what both Christo and Ananda said, when you look at your birth certificate, it's on bond paper. So bond paper is a security. So what they do when you go into court is they need your signature or your power of attorney, meaning your attorney's signature on your behalf, to open up another quote unquote case number, which will then be opening up as a CUSIP number, which then opens up another account to tap into that trust that they created, and then invest that bond paper on the international market and exchange it. And so when you change your status, or I shouldn't say change your status, but you inform them of who your status truly is through the administrative process, the repudiation, and even on a more local level, without doing the entire repudiation, you can do it through the court process when you have a specific matter at hand. When you declare to them, like what Ananda said, I am not an enemy of the state, and I'm not friends of anybody who's an ally of the enemy of the state. You've now removed yourself just with that statement alone from their jurisdiction. That's the first thing. And then there's other things that we'll talk about further later on of some of the language that we have to use with that. But ultimately what we're doing is we are not allowing them to work off of their assumption, and we're not being the signatory on that bond paper. And we are communicating clearly that they do not have the right to go ahead and trade that. When you said, ML, that they were trading and it's you, well, I'm just going to do a slight correction on that. It's not you. It's
Right.
your trust. And the only reason why they were able to do that is because until there's an assumption debunked, that signatory, that sign, that signature, anytime you apply for a credit card, anytime you apply for a mortgage, anytime you buy a car, anywhere you put your social security number, that social security number is like a drop trust from your birth certificate, which is the keys to the vault that the social security is. And your signature is you giving them permission to access those keys to the vault. Whether they approve you of the loan or not, they now have your SOCH, which gives them the access to go ahead and trade it as what we would call the beneficiaries, with an interest in it, to trade all of that bond paper on the market, unless you come back and say, no, that's not correct. And then from your position as a beneficiary or a third party interest in the trust, or the even grantor or principal of the trust with certain language that you use, now you can stop that, because they need that signature. Those 3 signatures that Christo was talking about was basically just accessing with permission all of the different combinations to go to the trust. And that magic signature by you or your power of attorney is the final straw that they need. So that's kind of what, in an overview umbrella of what's going on from a corporation point of view and an international market point of view. And where it's not fraud is they're all doing that in the operation of trust and international market and commerce. The one thing that they failed to do is tell you that's what they were doing.
Disclose,
So that non-disclosure is where the fraud is. But here's what you have to realize: ignorance of the law doesn't make an excuse not to do it. That's a maxim.
That's right.
So when you're sovereign, you're the one in charge. You know everything. You're creating everything, and it's your responsibility to pave your way. And so that's what these workshops are about. And that's what your station is about, ML, and everything else that we learn is for us to remember who we are and then implement the processes necessary so that we can be sovereign.
So what we do is that we just remind people that it is your time now to stand. And it's you that stand for you, right? Nobody else can stand for you. You have to stand for yourself. It even says it in the Bible, and you know that, ML. And so with that, it's really important to remember we have to re-educate ourselves, because we not saying anything, not rebuting anything in the court system is giving them, we're acquiescing of saying what you are doing is okay. And that's why it's continued on for so long. But really, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, who knew all this information? And as you research, it's like a laser and you go deeper and deeper and new things are uncovered. It's God exposing the dark. Because if we didn't know about it, it's considered to be in the dark. When you bring the light to the dark, what happens to the dark? It disappears. And that's what's happening here. So we have to remember that in standing and meticulously using their language, the legalese, we now move out of being incompetent and stupid. And now we are a breathing, living woman, man. And they know. It's so funny when you see the judge or something. It's so funny. We say a few things and he goes, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble right now. And sometimes they dismiss the case right away. It's pretty crazy because you say certain things to make that, you're actually making it an Article 3 court. That's what's going on. But also even more powerful than that, you're bringing in God's law from the Bible, trust law. It's so much fun. It is so much fun. And it's fun, active.
It is. And this is why I wanted to go down this road with you guys, is because let's face it, a bulk of my subscribers and followers are prescribing to David Straight, to their platform, to their program. But I get hundreds of individuals contacting me in various ways saying, I've bought the $80 thumb drive that's got all the documents on it and so forth, but they're lost. They're lost. They're like, I don't know what to do. Or I get people attend their 2 or 3 day seminar and they come back and they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do from this point forward. And so
I'm so happy with that. Go ahead.
Okay. And it sounds to me, the way you guys approach this, you eliminate a lot of these unnecessary steps, is what it sounds like to me. Because I'll tell you what, the very next day after I spoke with you, Christo, I watched a YouTube video with a lady by the name of Leanna who says she works alongside with David Straight's organization, but she comes from the same point of view you guys do, from the trust, from the Bible, these trusts, the domains, dominions, and everything else like that. And she said, the way I approach this would eliminate a lot of unnecessary steps, but it is what it is. But it was another second witness to what you had just shared with me the previous day on top of that. And when I started doing my own research, finding out that this is actually absolutely true. And this is why I had Cohen. He often comments when I do my live chats, and he brings he contributes a lot of great knowledge. But he and I and many of our subscribers were of the mindset we want to afford people a more complete process, shall we say, because I have a responsibility to the people that follow and watch me. And I don't ever want to mislead them down a path. I want them to be guided down a true path where, you know what, when they come and see a seminar, because I know we talked a little bit about today, I'm going to jump on board and put together seminars with you guys. I would love it. If somebody comes and spends 2 or 3 days with us, by the time they're done, I want them walking out feeling, I can do this. I can do this.
Now,
I'm not lost.
Great. ML, you're so right. Now, here's another thing that's really important, because I think we're the only group that does this so far. When we give a seminar, when we work with someone, we say to them, hey, these 2 or 3 days, it's not like you see us now and we're out of here and you never hear from us. We are available to you. I don't care how long it takes. I feel obligated in God's image. I feel obligated to make sure that every single person has certainty on every single word, on every single document, on every single process, and we stay with them. We're still working with people that we did 2 years ago, and they have questions or they want something, and we'll spend an hour with them to explain what's going on. This is something that what the people are, because we hear those complaints too. And so we want you to know that when we arrive, yeah, we do this, we have a great time, we get all the information, we look over documents and this and that, but you're going to have more stuff come up in the next 3 days, in the next 2 weeks, in the next 2 months. We are here for you. I can tell you this. It seems like it would be overwhelming with all the people and this and that, but something magical happens. And I really, this is God working. Even though we work with so many people, it feels like time expands. And we get in so much, and we look back and we said, oh my God, in 8 hours, we took care of 40 people. How did that happen? Because it wasn't 8 hours. That 8 hours turned into 60 hours. Thank you, Father. And it's so much fun when we start to realize that. But that's the most important thing. We have follow through.
Yeah, I want to comment on this. Thank you for bringing that up. So there's a lot of great teachers and tons of great information, but again, it can get so overwhelming. So we've created a step-by-step, it's 7 steps that people can take for the repudiation process. We offer example documents. We hold your hand through the process, because it's the first part is the repudiation. I say that's the Mount Everest. Once you get that handled, all of your supporting documents are very important, but we go through the why they exist, how to fill them out, who to send them to, what post office or postmaster to use, what color ink to use, a proper verbiage, how to structure your document. And we just make it so simple that we poise you for success. And we also recognize that everyone has very specific needs. So we help you to develop your own roadmap to success, because everyone here, your roadmap is going to look so different. We have people that were adopted. They can't find their original birth certificate. We have people that were naturalized. They came here from other countries. Some that came here from other countries became a U.S. citizen. Now they want to rebuke their citizenship. I mean, it's a grab bag. We've got bloodborne this and people who've come from Guam and they don't know what to do, or, you know, and we're finding people. We have not only do we do our weekend workshops, we travel around the USA doing that, but we also have an online course that has been very popular that people can just go at their own pace, which is really nice. But we're finding that people are jumping on the bandwagon and purchasing from Canada and other countries. And we're just laughing. We're like, well, this really applies to American laws. But what they're doing is they're taking the material and they're applying it to their own laws of their own country. So it is universal, and common law is universal. God's law is universal. That's why they're doing it. So it's getting very exciting.
Thank you.
We do follow up with people because we really care. We work 24/7, 365. We always have our phones on. I don't know how healthy that is, But you know, we can't stop. It's like once you learn this stuff and you feel so empowered, you feel compelled to help your brothers and sisters.
We were joking at the beginning that before we started this journey, I had hair like Cohen, and now it's just, I don't know what happened in the last 2 years. There's no stress. It's just all fun. But yeah, I like what Ananda and Christo said, especially with the fact that it's God's law that we're coming from, because you tell me where God is not. You tell me where God doesn't exist. You tell me where the kingdom of heaven is not. And therefore, the entire planet is returning home, those that choose to. Remember, you have one of your trust properties, and we can talk more into that, but one of your trust properties that God gave you when he created the trust was your free choice. Now, you can guard that choice. You can utilize with your equitable title to that any way you wish, right? So you have the choice to choose to go to the kingdom of heaven, or you can stay in Babylon. When there was the Exodus in the Bible, many of the Hebrews said, I don't want to even go anywhere there because I'm comfortable here. And then others that did, only 10% actually went to the promised land when guided by their trustee that was granted from God, Moses being the trustee to help them through the journey into the promised land. But the choice is always yours. And once you make that choice, I will tell you, there's no turning back. And it's a wild ride. I've taken 3 bottles of red pills, and it's just wonderful. And there's more on the shelf. So it's an exciting journey. And God works in various ways, we've heard. So this whole last 2 years with all the pandemic, maybe that was a blessing for God, through God, to say, hey, wake up, people, come home to me. And those that are choosing to do so are waking up, and we're uniting widely, worldwide, and that's a beautiful experience.
Now, the most important thing with all this, ML and Cohen, is that the most important, the stable datum, axiom number 1, is staying in honor. The first one out of honor loses. That's on either side, right? And so with that, to stay in honor, what does that mean, really? That means to be really certain on who you are, and you don't have to perform any emotions that may come up. There may be, this is an emotional journey. There may be angers coming up. There may be hatreds coming up, apprehensions, fear, whatever. What does it mean to stay in honor? To stay centered in the image of God, to stay centered in the love. And then when you talk to court in that consciousness, they don't know what to do. Why? Because of what Jason was saying, the court system is about war. Guess who developed the war in the most recent times, meaning, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago? The Vatican. They're the ones that put out. Do you remember the Crusades and all that, killing people and all that,
Yep.
So they're the ones that really started the war. They're the ones that are really behind a lot of this, a lot of the bar court systems and this and that. You got the connection with the Rothschilds, the central banks and what have you. By the way, just to go over that, it would be a good idea to do that right now. It's important for people to realize, a lot of people don't realize BAR, and it really means the British Accredited Registry. And so the BAR system of court, of law, is not true law. It's statutory and ordinance law, right? And everything is, they take their oaths to serve the crown. They take their oaths to serve the corporation. They don't take the oath to serve their client. And so a lot of times you will find situations where people trust, because we're used to doing it, hire a bar attorney, $50,000, $60,000 later, they still want more money and nothing's been done. This has happened so many times. We're cleaning up at least 10 different messes where people have hired the bar attorney, they're in debt $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and now guess what? We say fire your attorney here, and they won't even allow you to fire your attorney unless you know what you're doing. And so you cannot acquiesce with the fraudulent rules, codes, regulations, mandates, statutes, because if you do, you're going back to the jurisdiction of that water, back to the jurisdiction of Roman law, and you are exiting the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to do that? Not I.
Boo.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question real quick too. Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question, because I get certain questions all the time asked me, because it seems to me a lot of these divine brothers and sisters, motivating factor is a lot of people are waiting for Jasara and Asara, the RV. That's what they're always talking about. They're you know, and I keep telling people, why are you guys waiting for something that may happen? And first of all, there's two variations of that. People don't know that there was actually two variations of that. And so with that being said, what I tell people are, you know, why wait for what if when you can do something right now? So then I also, when I go down that path, then people will say, well, ML, if I change my status, can I like cash in? Can I call the treasury and claim the money that's been, you know, in my trust, as we said, that's been, you know, used in my trust? And I'm like, I don't know of anybody that's done that, honestly, but I hear people talk about it all the time. But I don't know anybody that successfully have changed their status and then contacted the treasury or whatever the process is and claimed the money that's been exchanged in their trust.
Yeah.
I mean, what say you guys when somebody asks you that? Because I know I'm going to get pelted by thousands of people with that question.
Ananda and Jason will talk more about it, but I'll start by saying that it is a very sensitive situation, and you have to know what's going on and how they set it up and where you're coming from, and who you are. And in that, we know people that have ankle bracelets on because they went after the trust. They did this because they think that the trust is their trust, and it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
The creator of the trust, the grantor of the trust, is the owner of the trust. He controls it, right? And so you have to bow down to that, saying, oh, great one, trustee. I think that there's been an attack on the trust, and that attack could be a fraudulent citation from the policy enforcers. That's the police. It could be a lawsuit coming from a credit card company or some sort of situation that you were in. It could be any one of those things. It's an attack on the trust. And then what you're doing is you are reversing what they assume you are, the trustee. They assume you're the trustee. And if you allow that to stay there, you will go to jail.
For trust fraud.
That's right. So what you have to do is you have to straighten it out, and you have to say, oh, you are the trustee, oh great judge. I am the beneficiary. I want to alert you to the fact that I think that there is some attack on the trust, and it's my job to let you know that. Would you please take care of this like you do so well? I appreciate that. So you're working together in it. This is where you have their backs against the wall. You're staying in honor. You're announcing what they are. You're saying, yes, you are. Okay. Now do your job. He has no other choice but do it, because if he doesn't do it, it's a breach of trust, and he could lose his judgeship. He could be fined millions of dollars that he has probably been skimming off of your trust over the years. Oh my God. Did you know, ML and Cohen, you probably know this, but when a individual, when a person goes, pardon the expression, he goes to court and he gets fined, he goes to prison or whatever, the judge, the prosecutor, and your own bar attorney makes tens of thousands of dollars. That comes from your trust because you were convicted. I would say that's a conflict of interest. Exactly. We want to go on with that, Ananda and Jason?
Yeah. You know, the public charitable trust, the trust that was opened using your family name, converting it to an all caps name, creating the corporation, which is the trust, the all caps name on your birth certificate. That's your first trust. That's assigned the QSIP number, right? That you looked up, ML. People ask us about this all the time, and I see it as the forever dangling carrot It's the Holy Grail. We all know that we are promised we're heirs to the kingdom of heaven. And so we know that there's a fortune and it's waiting for us, and we're the beneficiaries of it. But with that, when people come in, they do the repudiation process. And part of the repudiation process is you were out at sea, right? You were dead at sea. And now you've come back. You realize that there were some pirates afoot. Now you're, through education and understanding, you're coming back. You remember who you are. You remember your connection with God, and you're coming back to claim your minor estate. Now, the courts, they all see us as minors until 18, right? Or whatever the agreement, the collective agreement. But when you come back and you say, hey, I recognize that I'm not actually this all caps name, I'm the living, breathing, and I learned that I'm the beneficiary of this trust. Wow, that's great. Well, once you do that, they call it claiming your minor estate. That's what they call it. Now, when people hear, I'm going to claim my minor estate, they think that they're going to go and they're going to plant a flag in the earth and claim their rightful claim. And this windfall of money is going to come and land in their bank account. And I'm like, oh, let's slow down. So when you go back to the basics of trust, nobody owns anything. So there's no windfall of money that's just going to magically appear. But what we can learn trust law, and we can learn what the rules of the trust are, and we can recognize ourselves as beneficiaries. We don't teach people how to tap the trust, because we've heard of horror stories where one guy went out and bought a Learjet, and he's spending the rest of his life in prison. He figured out how to tap the trust. I don't think that's a good idea. And so we need to be responsible stewards. If we're to be beneficiaries, we need to know how to handle our affairs. We need to know how to be responsible. It's like giving the keys to a Ferrari to a 6-year-old. So I'm sad to be the bearer of, it's not fun to learn that this Holy Grail, this forever dangling carrot, if somebody goes and claims their minor estate and that windfall of millions and billions falls in their account, hey, show me how to do it. That sounds great. But I don't want to lead anyone into something that may or may not happen.
Yeah, and people have a misunderstanding. You have to go back to the basics of the operation of trust law. You have to go back to the basics of what exactly it is. First of all, when people are going, I want to get my billions, my first question to be like, well, who are you? In other words, when you say it's your billions, do you know what that means actually? Because the trust is your all caps name. You're a beneficiary of that trust. In trust law, the grantor, as Christo was saying, the grantor of the trust puts all of the details in the trust, and you, the beneficiary, is none of your business, really.
It's true.
You have, just in trust law, you have no interest in what the trust says. All you know is you're the beneficiary. And if in the trust, if the creator of the trust specifically said, I want this beneficiary to also be a trustee, then you'll be notified about that. Now, the trustee are many. The trustee are many. When the state created that trust, there was agents of the state who are now operating as trustees. There are also the SOS is also a trustee. And there are many other trustees, including the IRS. And again, this is all for educational purposes. Now, here's the thing with that. When you file documents or you draft documents or you're in a court case, there's specific language that's needed to be put into those documents to address the trust and the proper operation of that trust, so that you know who you are in relationship to the whole idea. Now, those who have one, now there's also another misnomer that says, oh, accessing the trust means I get dollars. Well, in actual fact, accessing the trust means you got that case closed if you operated trust correctly. Accessing the trust also means you got a utility bill not having to be your responsibility anymore through certain processes that you can use. Or you got credit cards discharged and you didn't get a check, but you're no longer, quote unquote, in debt in those ways. So people have to really get down to the education of what it is as the trust, who they are in relationship to the trust, who the trustee is, and then the proper documents issued forth for every specific matter. We also have to realize, like what Ananda said, that nobody owns anything really, and that's trust. So if you go back to the original trust, in the beginning, God. Okay, so who's the grantor? God. And then he created all these beautiful things. And then he says to, I don't know, some guy by the name of Adam, and then some girl by the name of Eve, I want you to go ahead and take care of these things that I created. Well, now they're the trustees. And then he says, oh, by the way, you can use all these things like the trees and the food and the water and all these wonderful things that were created that I, the grantor of that trust, created. And I'm telling you through my trust indenture called the Bible of how to operate in my trust. But did he ever say that you can own them? Did he ever say that you're creating them? He said, give them names. Well, that's the operation of somebody who's a beneficiary or a trustee in a lot of ways. He said you can use them. That's equitable title. That's a beneficiary. And then he says, take care of it. And oh, by the way, if you forsake me, you're going to lose all this stuff. And it's going to be very bad for you. So when you see characters, quote unquote, characters in the Bible pleading to the grantor, they're not necessarily going to get access to the trust because they're not of sound mind, right heart. They're not mature beneficiaries, and they're going to destroy the stuff. But those who are responsible trustees, we can name a few, like Moses, like Noah, like Jesus, and so on. They were given responsibilities, and it was very specific what their duties were. And if you just look, I love the Noah story specifically because he said, okay, Noah, you're going to be the trustee. And all the stuff in the trust are the animals and so on and so forth. And then he says, I need you to build this big boat. And then I'm going to just flood the earth. But then after it's all done, you, Noah, are going to release everything back out to the land, right, for the beneficiaries. And who are the beneficiaries? All those who procreated after Noah and all the animals, they all benefited. Where does it say you will own it? Where does it say that it's yours? It says you can use it. And trustees, one of trustees' responsibilities is to invest the property of the trust to make it more fruitful. In other words, if you apply that just to real estate, if you have a trust and you put a house in the trust, which is the property, right? The house is the property. Mm-hmm. You appoint a trustee, and the trustee's job is to create more value for that house. Well, he's got legal title to that, so he can sell it, he can upgrade it because he's increasing the value. So what does God say to his trustees? Be fruitful and multiply. Continue to make my property more valuable for who? Your children's benefit. So when people say, I just want to go get my $1 billion, you're like, you're missing the Noah Ark boat, man. And you need to respect the trust operation and come in honor and respect your trustee, let alone your grantor.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, with that, what happens with that is that if you come from the place of I want money, you're going to be in big trouble. Yep. Where's God? Where's God? Okay? And so with that, we must realize that now this is the part that's really, I mean, it's all spiritual, but it's really important to realize this. You can have all this information, trust law, the Bible even, everything. And if you just get it first, guess where it goes? It goes into the intellect. And you actually understand it. You comprehend it. That does not make it yours yet. Don't stop there. And this is where people fail. And this is the part that's the God law part. You must make all the material, all the forms, as a consciousness that lives inside you, and you actually become one with it. There's a difference. Now, if anybody's ever studied music, and you go and you try to figure out the music and this and that, you may sit for hours or days, and all of a sudden, boom, you get it. It's a magical experience. It's an energetic consciousness experience that the language of music is now yours, and you can start playing once that you get it. Same with this information. Once that it becomes inside you. Now, how do you do that? We've noticed that one thing, that if you pass a word that you do not know the true meaning of, you will have what is known as a misunderstood. And that will throw off all of the forms, and you won't know what you're doing. You won't be at one with what you're doing. So one of the things that we suggest for all the people we work with is, I want you to look up every word. I want you to look up the, of. I want you to look up mortgage. Oh my God. Now, you're not going to look this up in, Webster's or in Google or anything. They're going to give you the wrong, the incorrect information of what that is. Give you an example. Mortgage is one of the legalese that actually means death pledge, right? And so with that, you have to develop within your own being of how you bring this information in. And when you look up every word, you have a more intimate experience with that word. A lot of times we have people say, oh my God, I read this sentence. I thought I knew what it meant. And then when I really understood what of means, or what for means, does that ring a bell? Of, for, United States of America, or United States of America. Okay, good. So all of a sudden, a whole new thing opens up to you, and you start to become one with it. That's what we're after.
Yeah.
And you can see the people that start to do that, and they're totally successful.
Guys, I want to bring Cohen into this too.
Please.
Yeah, I want to bring Cohen in because I know Cohen probably has a question, because Cohen is really analytical. He breaks things down really well, and I know he's got a question. He's just chomping at the bit. Cohen, ask him a question, brother. You're okay.
Come, Cohen, come.
Yeah, no, this is really good. And everything that's going out. I've heard some of this before, but as you're talking, I'm realizing that I have not, because I've gone through some programs, and I've reached out to people and gotten some paperwork, and I've had some negative experiences in a court myself. I've had things where I didn't really have that full understanding of the things that I was using. It looked great, it sounded great, it resonated with what I knew as my inner truth, at a subconscious level or at a spiritual level, but really grasping it into intellect to the point where it could, from that place of truth, really be what was authentic, what I understood, not just something that I thought, or I had an assumption of my own. So I'm resonating with what you're saying here, because there is a need to not just, move in this direction without really knowing what you're doing. And I've made those mistakes in my past.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that's exactly right. We have discovered that unless you do the whole process and you have the experience of it lives inside of you, now you can talk about it and not have any thoughts in your mind, because thoughts are physical and they actually block energy. And so in great prayer, genuine prayer, you can actually get into that no mind state. And for me, that's when God comes in, always inside of me, but you know what I mean? I have a conscious experience of it, because my mind, the thoughts are not. We have a saying, you can't think God. Prayer or meditation is not what you think. Double entendre. And so we want to really realize that even though all the forms have all these words in it, once we discover the true meaning, this is the truth will set us free. So the truth of all these words, the words disappear, and the energy, the consciousness of those forms live inside you. And that's when you got it. That's when you can do anything, because at one with is what God is. That's why we have forsaken God. We weren't allowing God in our being, even though energetically, consciousness-wise. Now we're learning and remembering what it means to have God in our life. Truth in our life.
Well, that's why I say we need a spiritual revolution in our country, in our world. And as I always tell people, you guys, not you guys, but my subscribers, my listeners, I say, you guys are suffering from what is known as the savior complex, meaning in which you're looking for a political savior, you're looking for a financial savior, you're looking for a military savior. And as I said, the only three people you can depend on is the Most High, Christ, and yourself.
That's it. And then when you are one
Do
with
not
God,
pull
that's it. Exactly.
There you go. There you go.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again because it's important for everybody to really get this. Do you know that there's such a thing as intellectual emotion? That's emotion that you think you're feeling and you're not feeling it because you kept it intellectual. The mind is a separate thing than the soul. It really is. And you got to bring it to the soul, into the heart, for it to be real, for you to really know it. The only way that a person knows it is not by reading a book, listening to another person. The only way a person really knows something is you bring it inside yourself through the experience of it. So it's the experience is our only teacher. And so with that, you can experience things where you don't necessarily have to do it in the physical, but you have to have your heart open and you have to receive it. And you have to get the know best or the mind out of the way. And in doing that, you have a miraculous experience. It's a true sacrament for sure. I always say also in that, there's no such thing like with the four sacraments, which are compassion, humility, gratefulness, and number one, forgiveness. You can never decide to forgive. You can never decide to be compassionate. You can never decide to be grateful. You can never decide to be humble. Why? These are not of the mind. And decision comes from the mind. It's you got to open up and you got to pray. Say, please, Father, allow me to open up my soul, my heart, that I may know the truth of your love and beingness. Because those four sacraments are part of God's love, a major part. And they all of a sudden blanket you like a whole new energies coming in. And all of a sudden, automatically now you are grateful. Oh my God, there's no such better feeling than gratefulness. And of course, forgiveness is number one, because without forgiving, you can never love. Forgiveness is all about, a lot of people say, I want to forgive him or her because of this. No, you're not forgiving for that person. You are forgiving for yourself, because it reopens your heart to have love again. And what is love but God? We have to remember that God is love. God is truth. Now really feel that. You can meditate and pray on it. God is love. God is truth. Oh my God. So this is very important, this aspect of it. And this is what we were talking about, ML, briefly, that the spiritual side of this is the most important part. And this is the very thing that has been missing on our planet. What I believe, that's why Christ came. That's why Jesus came, because they were forsaking God. And he got us back in, but it didn't last. And so now look at this beautiful gift. Yes, it's hard. Yes, there's challenges. Yes, people are dying. But for right so, because of the fact this is God's plan, and look, we are all awakening to experiences and information and wisdoms that we didn't even know existed. I should speak for myself. I didn't even know existed. So this is a miraculous time to be on planet Earth. Did you have another question or statement, Cohen?
Yeah, Christo, I was going to ask you if you could elaborate. Earlier, you talked a little bit about remaining in honor. And one of the things that I'm seeing is that, as we've been conditioned really to be slaves or prisoners, these captives, we've learned to start dealing with each other in the same ways that our captors have set up a system for in dealing with liabilities. And when we're always worried about limiting liabilities and making sure that we get what we deserve, and we're not being shorted, and we're not being cheated at anything, and we're always thinking about cutting our angle, we tend to get into a real catty type relationship with each other, whether it be entities that we're doing commerce with, or whether they be other men and women who we're in relationship with. And when that influences those types of ideas, those types of principles with the liabilities, influences our relationships, it brings us into this low vibration, dishonorable state. And I would really like to hear you talking about some of your mindsets on honor, and how that has played out in the spiritual aspect of this, as well as your affidavits or your statements of correcting the assumptions, and how that's all played out.
Yeah, thank you. In actual fact, with that, it is something that is, you're staying in your center. In your center is where the heart is. Where the heart is where God is. So you're staying in God consciousness. Some people call it Christ consciousness, because Christ is a consciousness. Mm-hmm. Just like Lord is a consciousness, okay? And the Father is a consciousness, okay? So with that, in staying in honor, when you are treating yourself in a way that you have so much integrity to be meticulous, you're looking up every word, you're making sure that you really get and it becomes one with this information. Then when you are approached in any way, shape, or form with any kind of issues, any kind of lawsuits, whatever's going on in your world, you stay in honor. And because all the information is inside you, and you know how to handle everything. Now, when there is things that come into your life that conflicts with your joy, your honor, your sense, if you fall out of honor, it's said that thing owns you. And the reason it owns you is because it takes you out of your God. It takes you out of your honor, out of your love. And so with that, you must realize that every time that something happens in your life, you created that. You created it. And people go, what do you mean? I created my dog being run over. I created my house being taken away. Yeah. You know why? Because there's emotions inside of your soul that you have not been paying attention to. And God is saying, hey, Cohen, pay attention to this. And if we don't listen to that call and pay attention and deal with the emotions there, then that conflict within, this is a reflective world. God made it a reflective world. Anything that you see, you are. And you bring in, magnetically draw into you things in your world. If you don't handle the emotions that are inside that you're in conflict with, that you judge to be horrible or terrible, and all you have to do to heal that is to become one with those emotions. You bring it in. I am so afraid. I am fear. I allow it. The light you are, the love you are. By the way, scientifically, love in its higher gradient of existence is light. Okay. So with the light you are, any darkness like fear, anger, hatred that comes in, you bring it to you and you bring it inside you. It cannot exist in the light you are, and it melts away. And therefore it doesn't affect you in your world. You keep on purifying with prayer, meditation, and checking with yourself on what's happening here. And am I allowing all of my experiences, no matter what the emotions are? Yes, I am. Good. You're purifying. You're going to feel God so present. You're going to know. It's a knowing. It's a beingness. It's not intellectual. It's energetic, because everything is energy. And so with that, now you are doing what? You are making yourself whole. You make yourself whole spiritually, and you make yourself whole within the world of man. God created man. So in that, you can't be whole in the corrupted foreign state, in the corporation. So you retreat from that and you come back to the private or the kingdom of heaven, where all that exists in the kingdom of heaven truly is wholeness, holistic wholeness. You are one with God. God, and I am. God, I am. I love God. I love God. It's an amazing experience. So with that, this is how you stay in honor, because you know, as you know, I consider geniuses to be like very evolutionary and very enlightened individuals. And so you can become that enlightened being, that that genius in anything that you want to do in your life. You just have to stay with it, look up all the words, feel all the feelings, purify. In that, you become a whole person and your whole demeanor changes. You have certainty now, because certainty does not come from knowledge, intellectual knowledge. You can never have certainty with intellectual knowledge, only with experience and energetic or emotional wisdom. In other words, you experience it as an occurrence. You experience the wisdom as an occurrence. Don't forget, the soul doesn't differentiate between inner journey or outer journey. It's satisfied when you pay attention to the energy, the E, energy, motion, energy, and you become one with it. Anything you want to heal, we're trained. This is like fake training again. Oh, don't go near hatred. Don't go near anger or whatever else is there, because it's of the dark. You don't want anything to do with it. Well, that's a false teaching. And the reason it's false teaching is anything you push away or you resist, you will become effect of it. It will hurt you in your life. It will create things that do not bring you joy. It creates things of the dark, not of the light of God. And so with that, you must have that within your being, that fortitude, that you are going to make sure that you have an energetic, emotional experience with all forms, all words, everything. And that's when it leaves the jurisdiction of the, let's call it the third dimension, planet Earth, and it moves into the air jurisdiction, the kingdom of heaven, where you can be one with it. And that is where you are in honor. You've even seen some patriots go into court and say, I am here in divine special appearance, or it's better to say visitation, but appearance, whatever. And they're getting to that, you know. We found, just skipping over a little bit, we found that that patriotic experience in court has its limitations, because there's some truth missing in there. And that's where trust law comes up, where it comes from the Bible. Because there's certain things, you know, everything's been infiltrated. We have to realize this. Everything, our medicine, our political system, our court system, the way we garden, what we eat, everything's been infiltrated. Guess what has been infiltrated? That a lot of people don't acknowledge.
Yeah, our mind.
The Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is the most important thing, because there's things in the King James Bible. By the way, King James made it to suit him, and he changed a lot of words in there. He changed little words like of, or, is, took them out, put them in places they don't belong, changed the whole meaning of it. So, oh my God, is it true that we're discovering that the political system is corrupted, the corporation is corrupted, the pharmaceutical, the medicine is corrupted, fake science, fake government? Is it true that the modern Bible, so to speak, are also have been infiltrated, and there's certain things in there? This is where you discover, when you start with trust law and you go and you approach the Bible, that it's written in code. Anybody that takes the Bible and all the verses and sentences and this and that, and they take it literally, they're going to get the wrong thing of what it meant. It's in code, and you have to decipher what that code is. And once you do, you get that feeling again of, oh my God. You become one with it because you found out the truth of what it is. So in that, staying in honor, it's such a beautiful thing, because I call it God is with me. God is inside of me. It's alive. God is alive in me. What are you doing? Thank you for asking that. Thank you, trustee. I want you to know that I'm the beneficiary, and there's an attack on the trust. You're in honor. You're having a great time telling the truth and having straightened things out. You're not the trustee. You're the beneficiary. Straighten things out. He has to take care of it. He has to pay that fine, that bill, or whatever it is from the trust. That's what he does so well. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Another thing that does, and where a lot of people go wrong, they don't have all the words down. They don't understand it. It's not certain. It doesn't live in them. And the court system tricks you with their legalese. You make one mistake, you're going to lose. You're going to be railroaded to a predetermined outcome, right? And that's fined or imprisoned. And so this is, when you're in honor, you can never be tricked. When you have done your work and do what the Bible says, stand in honor. Wow. Whole different experience. I hope I answered your question.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Absolutely, it's been amazing because everything you're telling. See, I'm a historian, and I've been teaching people, the King James Bible that we revere. We got to be careful because the Bible has been transliterated, and I educate people. Well, there's a difference between transliterated, by just changing certain key, words or punctuations. It changes the entire meaning and structure of a verse or even a chapter or what and forth. It was probably a month ago. I taught a lesson on, who wrote the King James Bible? Sir Francis Bacon. He was the one that actually finally authored the King James, the final draft of the King James. Well, that led us down to, who is Sir Francis Bacon? Well, and so we go down this path, and it's all related. We have to understand the origins of all these situations to where we're at right now, because if we forget how all these things took place against us so long ago, because I know for some people it's a pain in their butt. They don't want to go down. They don't want to find out the origins of all these things because they're like, well, what does it matter anyways? We're here now, so what does it matter what happened 450 years ago or whatever it was? Well, it matters greatly because that's why we're enslaved right now. And it's the old adage, those that don't know their history are doomed to repeat it, and this is where we're at. We've repeated it over and over again.
Here's something that's
great
dissonance, and so many people have that in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. We know the obvious, the mask wearers, and they don't want to hear anything else. They believe the narrative. Okay, good. But a lot of people that are lovers of God, a lot of people that actually are Christians and other religions as well, when you bring up something that could possibly be that their life is actually a lie because they've been operating on information that is not true, they don't want anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. And so it's very sensitive that people. So we have adopted, and I can say we because we talked about it, we have adopted that we're open to anything. We're open to bring it on. Anything that anyone knows, we are open to receive it. And we will mull it over and feel it. I don't care if it seems conflictual with what we're teaching. You bring it on. This is how confident I am that what we have discovered because of our experience and winning in the court system and our experience with people freeing themselves and an emotional experience to repudiate, we know that the product, the results tell you everything. If it's working, must be true. Oh my goodness. So that's the important thing, that to stay open to receiving information that may now determine, oh my God, what I have been praying on, what I have been living, that actually isn't true. That's true. Thank you, Father, for showing me the light on this. And you can tell if it's true because of the experience you will have inside your being. Yeah. Because we all recognize truth from here, not from here. Mm-hmm. We also discovered that most people don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Most, probably 98%, if not more. And the reason they don't know who they are, because they didn't look up the word who. No, well, true, but is because of the fact that they forgot that what's running their life and who they identify as being themselves, the who, is actually false.
Mm-hmm.
And how that has happened, we call that the altered ego. We call that the demons within, the conflict within, and some people call it the Antichrist. Because guess what? It is. Because Antichrist is anti-truth, is anti-love. And this all fits in. And so in realizing that, the first time whoever raised a child and they said no to you, where we came from in the arms of God, there's no such word as no. It's all yes. It's all love. So the first time we heard no, the thousands of times we hear no, all of a sudden, if you're told no, you begin to talk and I go, no. You begin to share something or you want to eat something, no. You begin to pee your pants, no. You get the experience that what you are is not good enough.
Mm.
And you go into hiding. And this altered self, a protection mechanism of the pain of the no, of the non-acceptance of who you are, that protection, that mask appears, and you live your life thinking that who you are is that altered self. Guess what that altered self has in it? The tens of thousands of no's that you received from 6 months old to 10 years old. That is what's in that. And that's the conflict within. God consciousness is not conflictual. It is the kingdom of heaven. It is unconditional love. It is honor. It is joy. It is oneness. My brother, my sister, we are one. I will protect you and help you. I will, anything I say, that I promise, I will fulfill. That is my God consciousness there. That's common law in actual fact. And so with that, God, I just think if everybody adopted that, the world would be. See? So anyways, the whole thing is, and we can go deeper, 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 but the whole thing is to realize that it's your moral, spiritual, honor to God, obligation, that when you see corruption, you experience harm, that you do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking going to war. I'm talking straightening it out. Mm-hmm. Getting out of the prison, out of the clasp of the strong man, of the corporation, and return to the kingdom of heaven, where everything you are is beautiful. Everything you are. And everyone in the private, everyone that lives together, are operating as one, which God wants us to do, to help each other, to support each other, to love each other. And don't forget, you can't decide. It's something that you become. It's called the becoming. So that's what this all leads to. And we are blown away, ML and Cohen, of how many times we issue forth forms and have experiences with clients and our own stuff, and with dealing with the straw man and the corporation and the court system and the bar, and how that is directly from the Bible, from the kingdom of heaven. It goes hand in hand. We get blown away almost every day. It's amazing. Thank you so much for all of this. Did you have another statement, Cohen?
I've got more questions, but I think it gets
What's
more
that?
into the how-to. And, I'm really fascinated in hearing more on, the way that you go about doing it and interacting with, the court. But I don't know if we're going to get into that tonight or if that is.
You know what?
The next.
Now, here's something else, Cohen, that's really important to know. We shared various parts of trust law and everything. but we consider trust law to be extremely sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be of a certain consciousness to be able to even get it and hear it. We shared with you guys and your audience because we feel that it's safe to do that in regards to a person's not going to like freak out over it or whatever. You know, it's something that you can assimilate in your being because it's where you live anyhow. And so with that, what I recommend is we would love to come to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that, and let's talk about us coming there and spending a week there and working with everybody so that you guys have certainty on this, because it is so wonderful to see this actually work. You know, in all this, just a little comment on it. If you get a summons or subpoena or warrant, we recommend that you don't go. You don't go, because once that you go, now you're under their jurisdiction again. Yeah. They try to contract you. They try to bring you back into the water jurisdiction every way they can. Little words, actually. Amazing. Speak about little words. Just want to bring up something real quick. Our friend, Dr. David Martin, and actually bar attorneys that have become constitutionally minded, work with him, Stan, and I forget the name, George, I think of the other guy. And they actually they won a victory in court where they were responsible of getting rid of the mask in the airlines. Is that amazing?
Wow.
About 6 weeks ago. And they were responsible. And the reason they did that is there's the word shell and the word sanitation. Jason, tell them about that real briefly.
Yeah, so real briefly with the David Martin case, it was primarily the sanitation, is because the whole mask mandates were on the airlines were operating off of a law or a statute or assumption that they were using a word that was defining hazardous. And when they brought to the attention to the courts that their definition didn't qualify, and they substituted the word with what their definition was, and that word was sanitation, when they substituted the words, it debunked their entire premise for the masks because of the wrong language. So the whole point is, when you use the right language, the proper language, the accurate language, it changes the entire meaning of a word. Just like when you go into court and they say John Smith, if you don't know that they're referring to your all caps name, things that sound the same are not necessarily the same. But when you come in and you're saying, I'm John Smith, child of God, of the house of, right? And you have a whole different definition of the words that they are using, even if they sound the same, it changes the entire outcome. It changes the entire reality, and it changes the entire purpose of why you're there. And those are some of the things that we delve in administratively. And then if people do have to go into court, we help them speak the proper language so that they don't fall into the entrapments of the courts with their legalese.
We assist them by recommendation of words to use, of words not to use, of sentences to use, of sentences not to use, because each one of those in the wrong place and the wrong document that gets sent back could ruin the whole situation. So it's essential that you comprehend how this all works. And it takes more than a 2-hour, Zoom call or whatever you're on, I forget. And so, even 2 days, 3 days, it's like we fit a lot in that. That's why we feel obligated to actually stay open to anyone that needs our assistance weeks after, so that they become certain. As a matter of fact, 3 out of the 5 places we've been to recently has actually brought us back again, because they realize a very important axiom: number of times over material equals certainty. And we always say, when a person either reads a book, sees a film or movie, or goes to a seminar, they only comprehend and receive between 10 and 15% of that. Yeah. Why is that? Because of the conflict within. If you are clear of that altered ego, clear of that thought form situation, then you will receive 100%. Because the wisdom comes from not the words that you hear, because that's intellectual, but it's the space between the words is where the true wisdom is. Isn't that interesting? And you have to learn how to have the heart open to receive that. It's a conscious choice to have the heart open. And so with that, it's magnificent because you see people in the audience have these ahas. They start crying. I mean, it's like, and it's tears of joy because of realization of truth where they thought something was this way and they find out it's this way and their heart was open enough to receive that. That is evolution. That is where your life will change dramatically. And it's so interesting. And these two guys, Jason and Nanda, are brilliant at putting together words, their own legalese to work it against them in such a way that it changes the whole thing. And in one document, you can change a situation where you might go to prison because of fraudulent charges, and all of a sudden it all changes and the whole thing's dismissed. Oh my God. We have one friend that we know that actually that he knew he was going to jail for 20 years or more. At the last moment, he found out about trust law. He did all his work diligently and everything. And at the final thing, he presented his documents and where he was going to be railroaded to go to prison. It was dismissed. Oh my God. So God bless.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh.
They only have
That's absolutely amazing. Well, yeah, go ahead, Cohen.
Oh, I'm praising God for that. That's a huge change. That's a huge impact that you're able to contribute. And what a testament to why you're willing to work 24/7 when you can see that type of fruit from what you're doing. Why would you stop?
Exactly.
Right.
You know, God wants us to win. God wants us to be successful. God wants us to be abundant. It's our God right to be abundant. Oh, that's a little thing. This is a personal thing, okay? So don't take this for anything, but I'll just share it anyhow. Sarah and Sarah, right? Okay. Even ML said, hey, who are you waiting for? What hero? Ain't going to be given to you. It's us.
Yeah, we're the plan.
Guess what? The outcome of appropriately having your trust, the trust, actually pay for this, pay for that in such a way that you're not abusing it. All of a sudden, we hear, oh, this mortgage has been taken care of. Oh, this person went and got a very nice $60,000 car, not a $300,000 Mercedes. A car we kind of can go into a necessity. A Mercedes is not a Rolls Royce is not a necessity. So you're not abusing it. That's very interesting as this goes on. And you're in honor with that trust and the workings of it. And all of a sudden you have all this abundance. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. Could be Sarah and Sarah right in front of us. And that's just me personally. Just look at it that way because the outcome is the same. God bless. Love and truth. I love you, God. I love you, Father.
Thank you, Christo. Well, we're on 2 hours. So what I try and do is keep it at a 2-hour mark because I know people start tuning out.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is continue, obviously, tomorrow night. But what I'd like to do is at least devote possibly the second hour tomorrow night to questions.
Okay.
That people may have directly geared towards Jason, Ananda, or you, Christo, as well. I think, let's do that. We'll do that the last hour tomorrow night. We'll do questions, Q&A session itself. And I will post this up on my walls, and I'll send you guys a link to this as well, so you guys will have a copy of this yourselves as well. But this has been amazing. I'm telling you, this is a completely different way of approaching this thought process, because it really is a thought process. Retraining, retooling our mind to understanding or dominion, that it's all been given to us already. And I think about what, David Straight tells people in his seminars is what you just kind of said, Christos, is the RV, Jasar, it's there. It's already in place. We have to be the ones to demand it. We have to be the ones to claim it because it's there. And he says that, and I don't know where he gets his numbers from, but he says that, we have to have like 3% of our country changing their status in order for that to take place, which is what, 10 to 11 million people or something like that. And there's only a little over 2 million that's thus far changed their status. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, obviously, itself. What is your thoughts on that? Because I know people are going to ask that as well. Because as I said, we got a lot of people that are following, their program over there. And so they're going by what these guys are telling them. But it sounds to me that you guys have been able to condense that process a little bit easier in changing our status so that we don't have, a long drawn out process. Because I know we're in this race and people get lethargic halfway in the race and they just peter out and say, oh, it's too much. It's too much.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up. But here's something really quickly before I forget. We have a client that he knew about all this, but he didn't know how to do it or what to do. So he contacted us, and we actually put together a repudiation that had only 7 people at this particular one because we put it together in 2 days. He drove 1,000 miles to get there, and he actually, after that workshop, he repudiated in 3 days. He broke a record. He's in the Guinness Book now.
Yeah, it was very fast.
In that, with that, he took all the information, calling us back and forth, questions, this, statements, oh my God, this, meetings, and everything else. He had 2 court cases, right? They were railroading him, fraudulent cases, right? One of the cases was because he kept his shops open, right?
Barber shops.
That was his crime, right?
What a crime. Yeah.
So the first case that he did, he brought it into his being because he's been there consciously, but he didn't know how to put all the ingredients together. And so he was all over it. To make a long story short, in the next 10 days, he actually went to that court. He did everything correctly. It was exonerated. Now, there's a difference between closed, dismissed, and exonerated. You have to know that. When a case is exonerated, it never can come back. They can't grab it. If it's closed or dismissed, they can bring it back a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later. If they make up shit, we call it SMU, shit made up, right? That they can bring it back. But it's still closed, and they may never bring it back. And if they review the documents, they definitely won't bring it back. And so this is why we're saying this is you can do it. It doesn't have to take 6 months, a year. The main ingredient is you bring it into yourself. And you have to experiment with that because a lot of people have never realized that there's intellectual emotion and there's real emotion. And when you get something intellectually, and that's knowledge, when you get through the experience of it and you bring it into your being, that's wisdom. So there's a difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? And so there it is. Did you want to add to that, Ananda?
Yeah, I love everything you said. I just wanted to parlay back to that 3% question. And I have a little theory on that is once we hit 3%, it'll be the snowball effect. And I think we'll hit that critical mass at that point. It'll be the mass exodus. We did learn that through a reliable source that we were at about 1.4 state nationals in December, and now we're up over 2 million and climbing. That's in the matter of months. So it is happening. It's happening in a beautiful, organic way. It's we the people coming together, rising together, and it's happening. It's on. It's happening. Yay!
Wow! Yay! That's great.
Yay.
Oh wow! I'm so happy for that.
You know what else too?
Let's close it out for tonight and continue. Oh, Jason, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Real quick. When you start this process,
Jason,
and you start changing everything, what happens is takes a life of its own. And the life of its own is God.
Mm.
And God said, you stand,
Mhm.
you don't forsake me. I'm going to help you. And that's what happens. So it just takes a life of its own, and you get more energized, and you become more loving, and you become more responsible. And it's just an amazing experience. Jason, did you have something?
Oh, just to add to what you, Christo, and what Ananda are saying, the cool thing about the state national movement, energetically, because as Christo was talking about, everything is God, everything is energy, everything is consciousness. So if you look at what's been happening on the planet for the last 2 years, this great awakening throughout the entire planet, America is one piece of the puzzle, a crucial piece of the puzzle, mind you. North America specifically, a very crucial piece of the puzzle. Therefore, all the players within that piece of the puzzle are very crucial, meaning the state nationals, everybody who are your listeners, everybody on this call, etc. But what I'm alluding at is that when there's an expansion of consciousness, it ripples out throughout all of God, the whole planet. And people are waking up all over the world. And as they wake up, it's simultaneously people in America, and as America, simultaneously people in Canada, and as in Canada, simultaneously people in Europe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then that snowball effect, that critical mass, will take a life on its own, as Christo was just saying, and the state nationals will just be like, okay, and then there'll be people in Europe that will be doing their processes in Canada, and lo and behold, God has returned to the planet, and we are living in the consciousness that we are one, which is what the whole purpose was from the beginning.
God bless. God bless us.
Yes.
Everyone, and Tiny
Oh,
Tim.
wow.
Yeah. Thank you, ML. Thank you, Cohen.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you,
Well,
guys.
thank you. What I'd like to do is, Cohen, if you wouldn't mind, would you close with the word of prayer for us and bless us, seal this, and then we'll continue tomorrow night? Would you do that for us, please?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Lord, we just turn our hearts to you right now in gratitude and in this space, and we're just in praise, just acknowledge what's happening. And there's been ideas and thoughts and concepts that have been passed through these airwaves, but we want to recognize that there's also been energetic spiritual shifts that are taking place, that we are on the precipice of a momentum shift. And this momentum shift is it's the kingdom of God, and it's kingdom coming, and it's your will being done here on earth as it is in heaven. And so even though we have not seen it yet, we speak it as if it's so, that wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, and we know that the Spirit of the Lord is everywhere because light is everywhere, there's freedom. And so it has to be so that freedom reigns here in this realm. And so we just acknowledge that we seal it right now. And the children of God say amen. Amen.
Thy will be done.
So be it.
Amen. 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 So be it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right, guys. Well, we'll resume this tomorrow night. We appreciate everybody attending. I want to say thank you to the moderators that have helped assist us tonight. You guys that tuned in live, get your questions ready, geared up for you, because I want you guys to load up Jason, Christo, and Ananda with these questions tomorrow night, because
We love questions.
your brain while we got them. I'm really, I know you do. I know you do. And I am so looking forward to venturing forward in this relationship with you guys. I really am, because this is what this is all about. This really is. And this approach or reproach, if you will, this is it. This is it. And I love it. It's, yeah, my heart is full. It's just absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful for y'all. Thank you.
I love you have the peace flag up there.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, thank you. I got that just for you guys. Yep. I had to change my Second Amendment. I had a Second Amendment flag up there before, and I thought, well, I don't know if I should be going my Second Amendment or not. This would probably be more apropos with our conversation.
That's awesome.
So,
Awesome.
all right, you guys.
All right.
You guys have a blessed evening, everybody.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.